My name is Vanessa Williams. I'm a Director of Strategy here at Ignite, and I'm joined by my colleague, Joni Leiter, who's a Community Manager. She's in the channels on the day-to-day for a variety of brands, so has a lot of insight to bring to today's webinar. As you can also see, she has a fun holiday background, really getting us in the festive spirit. Unfortunately, technology didn't want to work for me, but at least she's there. During today's webinar, we'll be leaving time at the end to answer any questions that you might have. So feel free throughout the presentation to drop them in the Q&A section of the webinar. We will also be providing a recording following the conclusion of the webinar via the email you registered with. So we'll be sending that out as a follow-up. All right, so before we get started, we would love to get a sense of where everybody is with their holiday planning. So you should just see a poll being launched right now, whether it's just content, campaigns, activations. Would love to know, are you already done? Are you maybe in the midst of planning? Did you have a great plan in place, but now you're thinking you might have to go and revise it? Or are you still haven't really put pen to paper yet? Just would love to get a sense of where everybody's at. Joni, do you have thoughts? We have a couple more votes coming in. What are your thoughts here?
I'm thinking C, revising our original plan. I feel like a lot of people probably already had plans in place, and with the way things are changing pretty quickly. So
yeah, I think that's where I put my money too.
Yeah.
So we'll give everybody just 1 or 2 more seconds. Some straggling votes coming in. All right, interesting. Oh, had a last minute vote to kind of even it out. So most people are in the haven't really started planning yet. Very interesting. Okay.
Very interesting, yeah.
Well, that's great that you guys are attending today, because we think we have some really great insights to help you plan as you're kind of finalizing and kind of putting pen to paper down for your holiday social media marketing strategy. All right, so before we get started into our tactics, we wanted to share some research that really helps kind of position the holiday 2020 landscape. First, in 2019, holiday shopping shifted vastly to favor e-commerce. That's probably not a surprise to anybody on this call. Last year alone on Cyber Monday was the heaviest online spending day in history. It jumped about 20%, and that day alone brought in $9.4 billion in revenue, according to Adobe. So pretty big numbers there. This really was propelled, obviously, by a lot of the younger generations, Gen Z and millennials, spending more time, getting more buying power as they get older, and really leading the growth of e-commerce. But we're also seeing boomers and older generations becoming more comfortable with online shopping. And honestly, a lot of that had to do with the pandemic this year. Obviously, to buy products as kind of things shut down, it really shifted to a heavy e-commerce play. And 33% of the consumers during this time increased their online spending. And of that 33, about 23% fell in that older generation category. Also, to put kind of the last couple months into perspective, e-commerce grew more during the pandemic in an 8-week time period than it did the entire decade before. So very strong growth for e-commerce over these last couple months. And there's a couple reasons for that. Obviously, there was a shift from people who were very brick and mortar focused to placing obviously more emphasis on their e-commerce experiences. And then we're also seeing, the increasing rise of digital only products and services being offered as well. We also saw mobile shopping increase, especially with some of these new online shoppers. Now, there are some concerns, obviously, with the economy of a slowing holiday 2020 season, and we do see some challenges, obviously, being presented with that. But some of the initial data that we've seen is that we do still anticipate a growth in retail spending of about 3.4%, so probably not as high in years past, but there still are a lot of opportunities to reach consumers during this time frame who are still looking to make purchases for this season. We also wanted to share some of this data from Pinterest. So I'm going to pause here a little bit on this chart. And this really shows that holiday 2020 is happening earlier than ever. Obviously, we know people on Pinterest are planners. They're typically well ahead of the game in terms of planning their purchases and their events. And this chart really just explains that in more depth. As you can see, the skinny gray line here, that is typically people just on Google searching Christmas gift ideas, Christmas, recipes, holiday recipes, and that thick kind of turquoise blue green line is when people are searching on Pinterest. So you can see they're months ahead of those Google searches. And, again, that's pretty standard for Pinterest. But some things of interest is that people on Pinterest typically start making their holiday plans in September. But this year they started searching and saving for holidays back in April, which is so early, it's hard to believe. So holiday searches jumped 77% in April 2020 compared to April 2019. And there was a 3-time increase in searches for gift ideas, holiday gift ideas, Christmas, Hanukkah gift ideas, way back in April. So that's 8 months before December. So people have already been in the mindset, and that's just going to obviously continue to increase as we continue to approach the holiday season. So why the shift? Obviously, there are a couple reasons. Really, from this challenging year, people are looking for something to look forward to, and typically the holidays bring that comfort, they bring that positivity, and really consumers are looking for the season to feel festive. They want brands to really help, even step it up from years past in terms of helping them get in the holiday spirit this year. Obviously, there are concerns from some of the research that we've seen that people are worried about the pandemic's impact on, how they prepare. And, in years past, they didn't have to worry about, is my, gift going to arrive on time? But, with the challenges of supply chain and logistics that we've seen over the last couple of months, that's obviously going to be in their back of their mind this year. Obviously, if there's shortages in ingredients for holiday dishes, these are all things that, consumers are thinking about. They're going to plan ahead to try to make sure they can avoid any last minute, delays or changes to their plans. But they're really looking for brands to try to help maintain, that positive and that festive atmosphere this holiday season, even though we know it's going to look very different. All right, so with that, we are going to dive into our tactics that you should be implementing on social media to influence your purchase, consumers' purchase. So I'm going to pass it off to Joni to introduce them at a high level, and then we're going to be diving deep on the following slides into each of these.
Awesome. Thanks, Vanessa. So the tactics that we're going to review today are how to be strategic with your paid media, using price-conscious and relatable messaging, how to leverage shoppable features that are now available on some of the platforms, developing live stream video and how that can help your strategy, and influencers and influencer marketing and the considerations surrounding that. So first up with paid media, our team actually went and did a dive back into our numbers all the way to 2017, looking at the CPMs throughout the different quarters. And we found that in Q4, there was an average of about a $6 CPM, which is about 15% higher than we typically see throughout the rest of the year. So you can avoid some of those higher costs. One of those ways is to start advertising a little bit earlier, and also understanding the learning phase that's on Facebook can help. Once you get out of that learning phase, you can kind of gain some cost efficiencies there. And if you're not really familiar with the learning phase, we did recently publish a blog post about that really dives deep into that, and you can get a better understanding of how to avoid some of those higher costs when doing paid media. We definitely don't recommend you allocate the same budgets to every channel. You want to know where your target audience is. It's not worth it to waste your money where your target audience isn't going to see your ads. So definitely identify those channels that are going to be most valuable for you and put your money there. So again, optimize accordingly with those budgets. And through the pandemic, kind of like Vanessa mentioned, we saw a lot of shift onto social and a lot of budgets move to social. And you can see on this chart on the right-hand side that social is definitely an influencer when it comes to the younger generations, Gen Z and millennials, when they're considering shopping online. So when you are, if that's your kind of target audience, you're definitely going to want to move those dollars to social. And then for mobile, you're definitely going to want to ensure that your ads are optimized for mobile, but additionally, you're going to want to have them optimized for conversion. So as people are scrolling, they're going to be able to stop on your ad and then easily convert and purchase your product, which is the ultimate goal.
Yeah, some really great points. I know we saw the increase in mobile for some of those younger consumers and those new online shoppers, so that's really important. And I know later in the presentation, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into really thinking about your flighting. We have some key dates we're going to have you guys keep in mind as you're planning your media, because not only do we have holiday, but we have political season, so there's a lot to try to navigate that we're going to hopefully help provide some insight for there.
Absolutely.
All right, moving on to our second tactic, making sure you're using price conscious and relatable messaging. So obviously consumers have become more price conscious with the current economy. We want to make sure your messaging and visuals really reflect this change, which is a little bit different than in years past. Some of the stats here you see on the top here, we pulled from Pinterest and Facebook. So roughly 40% of people are going to be celebrating on a budget this year, which is a large percentage of that consumer audience. And roughly a third of them said they're going to wait for products to be on a promotion or a discount or a sale before purchasing. So that really indicates that people are going to be doing the research, they're going to be shopping around, they're going to want to make sure they're finding the best value. So we have some tactics to keep in mind to make sure that your brand is going to kind of win in that area. So obviously we want to make sure, price space and availability messaging is at the forefront of your social media communication. One thing that we've noticed in kind of doing some testing of our own is if you can include the price either kind of in the copy or maybe subtly in the image, that does help with conversion because people kind of can know what they can expect of a price point as opposed to, liking what they see, clicking through to your website, and then maybe dropping off because they realize, you know what, I saw this at a better rate from X retailer 2 days ago. So we think making sure that price message up front on some of your key products will help with those conversion rates. Also, availability message, we saw data, obviously logistics is an area of concern this year. So making sure, your product catalogs, any messaging that you have, any social content really has the most up to date of what inventory you have available. I think, Joni can attest to this as well. There's nothing more frustrating than seeing something that you like within a social feed, clicking through and then finding out, the product's not in stock or it's not going to be in stock until February of 2021. So making sure you keep updating your content to make sure what's, available is going to help, increase those conversions and really set the expectations. Also, like we saw, people are going to be looking for those promotions and discounts. If you can get ahead of the game and offer those, before events like Cyber Monday and Black Friday, we would highly recommend that. There's no need to wait until November to go out with, your deals for the season. We definitely think getting out there ahead of your competitors will definitely benefit you in the long run and help people, who are looking to buy early to avoid any, shipping delays or anything like that will help you win this holiday season. And then obviously free shipping, honestly, it's becoming more of an industry standard these days. A lot of brands and retailers are offering free shipping or shipping at a very low price point. Don't have consumers add $200 to their cart to be able to get free shipping. That's a consideration to take in mind there. And kind of along the same lines, really looking to make the buying experience for them as easy as possible. Reducing as much friction, click to add to cart will help really increase the conversion for your consumers this holiday season. So in addition to price conscious messaging, there are a couple other, messaging points that we feel are going to really resonate this season that look a little different from in years past. As you can see here on the right chart, we pulled this data from Facebook's seasonal holiday study, and they found that people are going to be, buying small gifts and treats for themselves. People in difficult times often looking for ways to stay positive and reward themselves. Facebook found this as a trend during the 2008 recession when people were looking again for small, affordable gifts for themselves during the holiday season. We know obviously it's a much of a, buying for others, but if you can subtly include some messaging and copy or content that has kind of that treat yourself or take care of yourself this holiday season, we think it'll definitely pay dividends to include that in your content as well. Some other kind of key messages that we feel will really resonate with the audience. I think, through the pandemic and a lot of social justice movements that we've seen this year, that people truly care about the actions that businesses take beyond just the sale or beyond just the price point. They're really looking for businesses to be authentic and to kind of put their money where their mouth is in terms of supporting causes that they care about. And they're really looking for brands to give back this holiday season. So we're seeing, increases in especially those in the younger demographic looking to support brands that align with their values. I know we touched on this a little bit earlier, but logistics is going to be a key thing this season. Obviously, looking at shipping speeds and delivery dates, it's really important to set the expectations of when things are going to arrive, and really making sure customers understand what's available and the support that they can get. I think what we saw again during the pandemic and for clients and other brands is that customers care skyrocketed. From phone to email to social media, we saw people coming to brands looking for quick responses, wanting answers, to why is my item not going to be delivered for 2 months? What's the status of my order? And it's really important to get a plan in place before the holiday season to be able to address those customer care issues. Have a team in place, have some frequently asked questions outlined so that way customers can feel supported that if I buy this product, I know I'm going to get the support I need through the whole process. And then obviously we've talked a lot about people are going to be buying online, but some people might be going in store. And if they do, they're going to want convenient, contactless, and safe shopping experiences. So making sure that's really clearly identified in your content if you are encouraging people to come in, what precautions are being taken, if your store hours have changed, what the overall shopping experience is going to be for them when they go there. All right. We have another poll question.
We do. So we wanted to see if any of your brands have tested shoppable features yet on social, whether that's Facebook, any conversion optimizations that you've been trying. Vanessa, have you bought anything directly from social before?
So I definitely have the retargeting ads. I have seen obviously click and then go to website, although I have not purchased anything straight through Instagram or Facebook yet. So
yeah, I'm in the similar boat, but I've definitely gone back a second time after being retargeted. Definitely guilty of that.
Yep. All right, so a little bit of mixed results. Actually, more people have tried shoppable features. That's great. That's awesome. I would say you guys are kind of ahead of the game there a little bit.
Absolutely. I would absolutely agree with that.
All right.
And that's awesome. And it takes us into our next tactic, which is leveraging those shoppable features. And as we've said before, the state of the world, we know that window shopping will be happening so much more online this year, more than ever before. And 22% of people are more interested in shopping via social. So if you have the opportunity to leverage these shoppable features, which seems a bunch of you have already done, that's fantastic. And it's great that you can are considering your audience and where they are and starting to enable those shoppable features, because another stat that we know is that 23% of people are less interested in shopping in store this year. So again, shopping on social is going to be huge. So some of the shoppable features that are currently available Facebook and Instagram shops. They've kind of changed up the way that they used to have that setup, and now there's an option for native checkout, so you could check out directly Facebook and Instagram, put your credit card information right there. You also have the option to be pushed to your brand's website, and there's also the option to integrate a third-party app such as Shopify. So if that's something that you're interested in doing, definitely check that out. We do know from our Facebook rep that this is not rolled out to all brands yet. So if it's not available for you yet, definitely keep an eye out and consider testing that in the future if you don't have the opportunity just yet. And TikTok, we know, has grown so much over the last few months, and they on their advertising platform, they have the ability for conversion. So if you're looking at that younger audience, maybe consider doing the conversion objective on TikTok. And though it's not necessarily a direct shoppable feature, we do really recommend that buy online and pick up in store messaging, kind of like Vanessa alluded to on the previous slide. Logistics are going to be really tricky this upcoming year. So if your customers have the opportunity to buy online and then go pick up in store so they can get their products faster, then rather than waiting for shipping, because it's anticipated it's going to be a large shipping volume this year. So if that's an option for you, definitely consider it.
All right, moving right along to our fourth tactic, developing live stream video. Honestly, we're still seeing live stream and video content getting a lot of attention and prioritization by the platforms, especially with the younger audience. And some research we did for an infographic, Gen Z and millennials still see video as king. So if that is your audience, you really want to integrate video or live stream content into your holiday marketing plan. And honestly, the pandemic propelled the growth of live streaming. You can see that in this eMarketer chart here. The red bars was a March 2019 forecast, and the black bar are the February 2020 forecast. So you can see just a steady incline in the growth of live video viewers, and that forecast continue to grow over the next couple years. And we're starting to see platforms integrating more with those live video experiences. We're seeing Facebook and Instagram integrating live shopping, so you can actually tag products from Facebook shops or from a catalog and integrate it with that live video. You can see an example here on the right of what that looks like on an Instagram live. You can see the product that she's featuring. There's actually a button at the bottom to go ahead and add that to your cart, add it to your bag to check out. So like Joni mentioned, these features aren't available to everybody, but keep checking your platform to see as those slowly start to roll out. And then obviously, depending on your audience, YouTube, Twitter, pretty much everybody has live stream capability. So really just can consider what channel makes sense to activate a live on. Obviously, we know that, not as many people are going to be going into stores. So these live streams offer the ability for real-time advice, product demos, an exciting way to promote new products or limited time offers. Some things to consider are making sure, you have the right talent in place, whether that's in-house or maybe bringing in an influencer to help kind of promote and, be the host of that live stream. You obviously want someone who feels very comfortable on video and can kind of maintain a conversation. Along the same lines, content. You really want to make sure you have a good understanding of what makes this a valuable, piece of content that should be distributed live versus a video that could just go up at any time. So making sure you have a hook and kind of a run of show of what's going to be covered so the live stream doesn't kind of fall flat. Obviously, you're going to want to do some test runs, check your internet connection. You don't want any disruptions. And then you're obviously putting a lot of time and effort into this live stream, so you want to promote it, make sure that you have some good attendees to really, engage with the live stream. That's really the value, is kind of that more one-to-one experience that the platform does offer. All right, moving on to our fifth tactic, to consider influencer marketing. So some data from later in 4 found that about 80% of influencers reported higher engagement from their followers during the pandemic, which is pretty significant. Obviously, we saw people spending a lot more time on social media. And as we mentioned, holiday is a great time to consider involving influencers in your marketing plan. They're great, as we mentioned, to host live streams, to create content. If you don't have access to the studio that you once did in an office setting, influencers are a great way to develop that lifestyle, eye-catching content. As you can see, these were some examples from an influencer campaign from our sister company Carousel. As Joni mentioned, window shopping is going to be happening online more than ever. So really thinking about that content that's going to bring, attention and really captivate the audiences and help them visualize, what kind of gifts this might be or what kind of experiences these might create. Influencers are a great way to do that. Obviously, you can leverage their audiences. You can use them to help drive traffic to your website, or if you have specific areas that you want to target, influencers are a great way to bring in that credibility. And then one thing to consider is, though, they get very busy during the holiday season. Obviously, there might be other obligations working with other brands, so it's really important to book them early. We also wanted to kind of just throw out one thing there. We have seen influencers being more and more cautious of the brands they're associating with. I think a lot of that has to do with, the pandemic and some of the social justice movements. Again, they're aligning their values to the brand values and making sure that, everything aligns to what they believe in, or they might pass on promoting your product or brand.
And as a little pre-holiday gift, we wanted to give you one more bonus tactic, which is to be flexible. You're going to want to plan for your plan to change. If 2020 has taught us anything, it's to stay on your toes. So the time between planning and execution is very large. So definitely keep in mind and keep your finger on the pulse of anything that could be coming up. So if there is another wave of COVID, the way the social climate is going, definitely when you're putting your messages together, you want to be strategic and sensitive to what you're sending out. So on the right-hand side is a chart of some events that you're going to want to probably flag for your editorial calendar, just to keep an eye on these dates. So this week, Thursday, Friday, is that virtual march on Washington. So if you do have some messages that you plan to go out, maybe reevaluate, decide if that's something that really does need to go out, because we know with events like these and all the events on these lists that the sheer volume of messages that come through could easily bury your own message. So again, just be cognizant of what you plan on sending out on these big dates. And Amazon Prime Day, brands love to jump on this opportunity. So earmark October 5th for sure. And then the typical holidays, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, which could be Cyber Week. That's something that there's a discussion around. So keep your eye on those for sure. Some key takeaways that we have are plan content and paid media around those key dates, and for high impact channels, again, know where your audience is, know which dates you should be pushing your message. As Vanessa said, the holiday messages that we've put out in the past definitely won't resonate the same this year, so make sure they are understandable for this year. Video and live video are getting priority in the feeds. If video is something you can add to your strategy, definitely plan to do that. And again, if you're considering adding influencers, plan to secure them now so you can get that process in motion. And finally, things are changing daily. We all know this. So definitely build flexibility and any safeguards you need into your plan.
Awesome. Well, that wraps up the content for today's webinar. I know we're right at 30 minutes, so we will stay on to address some of the questions that came in if you guys want to hop off. Thank you so much for joining, but Joni and I will stay on to answer some of the questions that came in. Just a heads up, we have another upcoming webinar with our sister company Carousel. We'll be hosting that on September 15th around an influencer marketing Q&A. You can find out information if you're subscribed to our social You Should Know email list. If not, subscribe and you'll get the updates. All right, Joni, should we jump into some of the questions that came in?
Let's do it. So One of the questions that came in says, as an e-com brand, which is better, driving people to my website for purchase or using shopping features on the social channel directly? What do you think?
Excellent question. Honestly, we're kind of working through some of the ins and outs of shoppable features for clients right now. And Joni, I'll let you disclose some of the details that you found out, but I would definitely say it kind of depends on your audience. If your audience is, I would say, on the younger side, they might feel more comfortable kind of having the full experience, right? The checkout right on Facebook or
Totally.
Instagram. That's definitely seamless, and it prevents people from bouncing around or maybe falling off in the process. But I would say, if your audience maybe isn't as familiar, maybe they're newer to, e-commerce purchasing, probably skewing on the older side, maybe not. It probably is better to direct to your website. I know Joni can talk through some of the nuances of either or, but that would be kind of my initial take on it. You could also try A/B testing as well. You could have one checkout, on the, through Facebook or Instagram, and then another, ad unit checkout through your website, and just see where you see better conversion as well. But I'll pass it to Joni to finish that question.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you about pushing to a website. And while setting up Commerce Manager for one of our clients, we found that if you are wanting to check out natively, Facebook is taking seller fees. So if that's not something that you want to deal with, then definitely do that pushing to your website. We definitely recommend that more than checking out natively.
Yeah, there are some other, you will have to provide Facebook with more information if you're going to use their
Right. The
checkout
tax IDs, the
there's a lot.
bank
There's
account
actually
numbers, a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, so if you're looking to set it up quickly, you might just want to direct to your website for the time being as kind of Facebook works through some of those kinks, but great question.
And one other one that came in is, how should I plan to staff for social media customer care around the holidays?
Ooh, another very good question.
Really good question.
Okay. I think it's going to depend by brand, obviously. I think you will have a good sense on, over the past few months, have you seen significant increases in customer care needs through social media? We've seen a lot of brands, that we work with, have those needs to really staff up a customer care team. I think obviously usually a community manager is kind of the first line of defense. They're on the channels day in, day out, but they might not always have all the tools and resources to address order issues or things like that. So, we always say plan for kind of a worst case scenario. Have a group of people trained in case there's anything that, really kind of takes off and needs a lot of hands on deck. But I would take just a look at your past data, see typically how many questions and comments you typically get, and then obviously plan for a couple extra people to hop in case that's needed. Obviously try to train them in the September-October timeframe, so that way you're not trying to do everything right before a campaign launches or before Cyber Monday. We try to recommend having those frequently asked questions outlined, so that way you're not always recreating a response to a frequently asked question. But we would recommend kind of starting with what have you seen in the past? Likely, you'll probably see a little bit of an influx unless there's anything planned or something like that.
Absolutely. And if you have, like you said, the FAQ, if you have the opportunity to build out the FAQ on your own website, that could be pretty helpful as well. So if you have any shoppers poking around and they have questions, maybe they'll come across that page and they won't necessarily have to go to social to ask those questions.
Yeah, we'd also recommend having, contacts internally earmarked for certain things, whether it's illegal or, having kind of a go-to list of people that can address questions quickly or things like that, or order issues would be our recommendation to get everything kind of outlined in a known plan early on.
Awesome.
Any other questions?
I think that's what we got.
All right. Well, again, thank you all for joining today's webinar. Like we mentioned, we'll be sending this recording out. If you guys have any questions that pop up later, feel free to send us an email. But we hope you have a great rest of your day. And thanks for joining.
Thanks so much.
Bye.